So I'm Paige Ruane, and you will be hearing shortly from my colleague, Vanessa Bertozzi. We are co-directors of this Building Decarbonization Grant, or BDG for short. Here's our agenda for this session. We'll explain why we are offering this grant and give you some background on Partners for Climate Action, the nonprofit we work for. We'll provide an overview of the grant and some details about the application. We will also highlight some of the additional aspects of the program, such as extra support we offer to grantees. This will take about 20 minutes because we want to devote the bulk of our time together to your questions. We want to thank our partner, Tara Donadio, for joining us today. She is from the Capital District Regional Planning Commission and will be helping us field questions during the Q&A about available grants that can be used in combination with our grant if needed. We don't require a match for this grant. We will be muting you during our presentation, and then we will welcome your questions when we begin the Q&A. Excuse me. We ask that you refrain from using the chat to ask questions until the very end if your questions have not been answered, and we will collect them and circle back to you with answers from this session. So a little bit about why we created this grant program. The heating and cooling of buildings, many of you may know, is the top contributor of greenhouse gas emissions in New York State. And we want to help you change that. Our area has some of the oldest building stock in the country, and retrofitting these buildings really needs to be done. The state has programs and funds to help you do so, but we realize that those programs can be hard to navigate and often require matching grant funds. So we have identified gaps in those processes that we can help with. We have launched the Building Decarbonization Grant to target these three stages. Municipalities and nonprofits can apply for grants between $5,000 to $100,000, depending on the...
Sorry to interrupt, but the presentation is a little off. It's like not centered on the
oh, really? Okay, thanks.
Screen there. Yeah, perfect. All right.
Oh, okay, thanks. Are you seeing my whole screen or just you're seeing my
we see the
whole
top
screen
browser as well. So maybe
thanks.
you got to do full share mode or something in the Google part, but we can see the layout right now.
You can see it right now. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Just so you can see me moving this around right now.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, gotcha. All right, thanks. I'm going to move my screens. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, you can see everything now?
Yeah, leave it like that, page letter.
Okay. All right, thanks for telling me. All right, so municipalities and nonprofits can apply for grants between $5,000 to $100,000, depending on the stage your project is at, whether for energy studies, engineering and design work, grant writing services, or the actual implementation of decarbonization projects. We will get to the details of that, but first, for those of you not familiar with PCA, Partners for Climate Action, I'll tell you a bit about our work. PCA is dedicated to removing barriers to action. We do this by providing funding and other forms of support to local communities who are taking action to address the climate crisis and restore their ecosystems in the Hudson Valley. PCA is fiscally sponsored by the New World Foundation. We raise funds primarily through private donors and foundations. PCA staff runs additional programming such as the Local Champions Program, Ecological Restoration Grants, Libraries of Local, and events such as PCA Mixers, the Morning Coffee Guest Speaker Series, and our Get Outside group outings. Our efforts are focused on the local bioregion, which is defined by the Hudson River Estuary watershed. It runs from Troy and New York City and the Catskills to Western Massachusetts. To be clear, we are offering this grant to the following 6 counties, whether or not you're technically located in the Hudson River Estuary watershed: Putnam, Dutchess, Ulster, Columbia, Greene, and Rensselaer. In the future, we hope to extend our offerings to all counties in the bioregion, but we are pacing ourselves. Underlying our work is the recognition that there is a unique opportunity here in New York State We have the most progressive legislation in the country, even more progressive than California's. The state is already gearing up to distribute hundreds of millions of dollars for communities to mitigate our impact and adapt to climate change. We are committed to assisting communities to be ready to apply for this funding. So now I'll pass the mic to Vanessa so she can give you an overview of the Building Decarbonization Grant.
Great, thanks, Paige. Let's see, there's a couple more people in the waiting room. Great, okay. So thanks everyone for coming today. I'm going to give you some more details about this opportunity itself. And let's start with eligibility. Municipal eligibility includes villages, towns, and cities. At this time, we're not accepting applications from county entities. For nonprofits, you must have some sort of tax-exempt status. So whether you have a fiscal sponsor or your own 501c3 status, or the like, if you're a faith-based organization or a school, library, or a museum. We want applications from community organizations, especially those who are working with disadvantaged populations. And the goal for us is to give 40% of our funds to disadvantaged communities or organizations who are working directly with those disadvantaged groups. So if you're curious about where you are based is in a state designated disadvantaged community, the link is on our webpage for the Building Decarbonization Grant. So you can go check that out later. And another point with eligibility is you must be the owner of the building. The organization that you're applying on behalf must be the owner of the building. Because of the way that our funding works, PCA is not able to give money towards building improvements if the owner of that building is a commercial landlord. So unfortunately, we're not able to help renters with this particular opportunity. And again, Paige mentioned it, but just to mention it again, to be eligible, you have to be located in one of these 6 counties: Columbia, Dutchess, Greene, Putnam, Rensselaer, or Ulster. Okay, next slide. So there are 3 stages of the building decarbonization process that we have observed some gaps in our previous work. And so we tailored our Building Decarbonization Grant to speak to these 3 stages. Stage A, energy studies; Stage B, engineering design, and optionally grant writing services. And then Stage C is implementation, like actually putting in the equipment or so forth. So, so you may be considering, say, I'll give you an example, insulation as well as heat pumps in a Stage C application. You can bundle those into one application if it's the same building. You may have a number of projects at various stages at more than one building. If your organization has more than one building, in which case those would be separate applications. So you could say, our town wants to do an energy study for our highway department, but our town hall, we're ready to go with some heat pumps. But again, 2 separate applications. We would prefer for you to choose the one thing you really want to go with and focus on. But if you want to, you can apply for more than one building in those different applications. We just want to be transparent with you that it is unlikely that we would fund more than one application from one applicant. And that's simply because we're seeing that there's a lot of interest in this opportunity, and we're going to want to share the wealth and try to help as many organizations as possible. Okay, so now I'm going to go through each stage with some tips. So Stage A for energy studies, note that energy studies for nonprofits, you can get those right now for a really low cost, like $100 to $500 through a state program called Green Jobs, Green New York. And again, that is linked on our webpage. So if what you need is energy studies and you are a nonprofit, you should go and do that. Okay. For municipalities and schools and colleges, you can also get a subsidized energy study through the nice sort of Flex Tech program. But with that program, there's a 50% match. So where our grant can come in is to help you with your half of the match. So you would apply for us for $5,000 to help you with a match for the Flex Tech program. So that's a little bit about the stage A and the kind of different types of applicants there. Okay, for stage B, this is a gap we often see with, say, larger, more complex projects. Let's say you're doing a total revamp of a large building's HVAC system, and you think this implementation is going to be, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But even to get to the point where you understand what you're asking for, you need to first hire a firm to do engineering and design work. And that in itself can be a chunk of change. And we see people, bump up against this roadblock. So this is where we can help you with a grant for $5,000 to $15,000. And let's say once you have that estimated budget, you've done your engineering and design work during our grant period, and then you intend to use that to apply for a larger grant opportunity from some other organization, but you need a grant writer to come in and help you. You can also request grant writing services as part of your stage B application. And note that some engineering firms kind of package that grant writing together with engineering and design, whereas some of you may choose to go with a freelance grant writer that maybe you work with. Either way is fine. And you don't have to include grant writing in your application if you're all good. You can just focus on engineering and design. So there's some options with the stage B as well. And you would just itemize what you want in your budget to lay out what's going to grant writing, what's going to engineering and design. And again, stage B may not be required for everybody. You may have a more straightforward project and you can just go right to stage C implementation. It's not like everybody needs to go so sequentially, stage A, stage B, stage C. Okay. And then for stage C, which is the actual, getting down to it, doing these projects, the implementation, you can apply for between $5,000 to $100,000. And these are actually doing those building decarbonization or energy efficiency measures to your building, such as adding insulation or air sealing. We've had folks ask about doors, tighter doors and windows, anything to tighten up your envelope and make your building more efficient. We really encourage that. And then you have adding new technology, such as heat pumps or ground source geothermal or solar. And, the reason why this stage, we said you can even apply for lower amounts like $5,000 is because we want to open that door to you. If you say need to do a smaller project that's still going to make an impact, that's great too. So don't think that you have to go for the huge big ticket item. If that's not what your focus is, we really encourage some of those smaller applications too, because those will be easier for us to fund, honestly. And if you're installing new equipment, your application is more likely to get funded if you're replacing your existing fossil fuel infrastructure. If you're nervous and you say you want to leave your oil burning furnace in the basement just in case as backup, that's okay. We're not requiring you to pull it out, but we do want you to be replacing fossil fuel burning infrastructure and equipment with new electric equipment. Another caveat there, like if you're replacing, say, baseboard electric heat with more efficient heat pumps, you can apply because you are reducing your energy consumption. It would be more efficient, but we just want to be transparent that that would not be quite as compelling in application as, say, someone directly replacing like a oil burning furnace or something. Okay, and timeline. We are less than a month away. Deadline's 5 p.m. sharp, November 21st. Please don't leave it to the last minute. After the deadline, then our selection committee kicks off, and we'll take December and into January to make decisions. We hope to announce the grantees like late January, early February. And then once we select those grantees, then there's some onboarding with New World Foundation, which is like our financial fiscal sponsor. And then once you receive the grant, then that 1-year grant period kicks off. So probably March 2024 is when the clock starts ticking. So some money details. This is not a reimbursement grant. And that's kind of exciting for those of you who are familiar with state grants where you have to lay out the money in advance and then get reimbursed after. That's not the case. Once you're accepted and you provide those financial documents to New Road Foundation, then the grant money gets deposited into your account. And that starts the 1-year grant period. And 1-year grant period, we really want to see action. You know, we're looking for applicants who have a project that's ready to go, and that's going to be done within 1 year. If you have a complicated implementation project, we understand that sometimes, especially construction projects, timelines can slide. But you must at least, you know, be commencing that project, even if it's not finished within 1 year. And then at the end of the 1-year grant period, we really are trying to make it easy for you. It's a short report. You fill out, you explain how the funds were deployed. And we really try to make that management of the grant straightforward for you. Okay, so we do encourage you to apply only for the money that you actually need for the project. The tighter the budget, the better. In terms of like estimating your costs. Please don't apply thinking, oh, I'll just go for the max, might as well try. We are still fundraising, but our supplies are limited. So we will probably only fund 1, maybe 2 of those big top dollar implementation grants. So so we would like to see a variety and a range of amounts that people are applying for across the different stages and across different amounts of money. And again, we want action. So if your project will require additional funds beyond what you're asking us for, you need to have that lined up and included in your application. If we are helping you with matching funds, we don't, for instance, want to be matching a grant that you just applied for, but you may or may not get in the future. We probably won't select your application if that's the case. We want, if you are using us as matching funds, you need to have already been accepted for other grants that you're matching it with. And we want to see some skin in the game from you. So if, because we see that as a real sign of commitment to the project. So that could be from your own budget or some fundraising that you're doing with your community or that you've done, or even in-kind hours on the project. You can list those on your budget. Yeah, and really we want to make this easier. We've heard over and over again on our work with communities that sometimes small municipalities and nonprofits struggle with managing that additional work that comes from building decarbonization projects up on top of your day-to-day, mission of your organization is a lot. And we also know that managing the grants itself on top of that is a lot. So we've really tried to make it easy for you and acknowledge that work, so you can have 10% of your request actually be for administrative costs, including salaries. And you can itemize that in your budget as well. Paige, you got this slide.
Okay, thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, so we want to make an example of you and your good work. So we encourage you to use your finished project as a demo site for your community members. We are building in support for you to be able to do so. You can request $2,000 for community engagement activities and materials showcasing your project, such as signage or any other creative idea you come up with. We are partnering with NYSERDA's regional clean energy hubs, both in the Mid-Hudson and Capital District. They will be on hand to support grantees who make demo sites of their projects when they're finished. They can support you with outreach to residents in your area and let them know about rebates, tax incentives, and the practicalities of decarbonizing their homes and buildings. So we'd like to see applications that detail how you'd use your project as a demonstration site or how you'd build in other community engagement in order to leverage your project to inspire residents in your area. So a question on our application asks, how would you build in community outreach?
Okay, great. So now I'm just going to really quickly talk about the nuts and bolts of the application itself. Because the application is a Google form where required questions are there and they kind of block you from being able to just click through to the next screen. We did create a Word and a PDF version of the application so you can look through all the questions and you can kind of sketch out your answers in advance. And the idea there is once you're ready, you can copy and paste from your draft over into the Google form, because all applications have to be submitted via the Google form by November 21st. And then you'll also see that there are some additional attachments. And rather than having those uploaded through the Google form, we're requesting that you email those to decarb@climateactionhv.org. And also by the November 21st deadline. So here is what the grant application looks like. You can see it's a Google form. And Google accounts are not required when you're doing the Google form, but we recommend it because if you're signed into a Google account, then the form will automatically be saving your progress in the background. And then you can come back and continue working on it and edit it and come back to it. So if you have a Google account, we do suggest that you sign in, but we didn't make that required. And here you can see this is the end of the Google form. And here you can see it kind of prompts you to remember to email us these other documents as attachments. So like your budget, we're requesting that you have an official letter from your board or your executive director or your town supervisor. And then there may be additional items that you'd like to share with us, like if you've done an energy study of the building, that would be great to see, for example. Okay, Paige.
Okay, thanks, Vanessa. Now I'll tell you a bit about additional support we are building into this program. So it's become obvious to us that there is strength in numbers. Working together is much better than going it alone. So much is to be learned from each other as we share our experiences of doing this climate work. We will be holding virtual office hours for grantees twice a month, where you can troubleshoot and bring your questions to us, each other, and a variety of other technical experts we will bring in. We also host monthly virtual guest speakers on Zoom who will talk about successful and innovative decarbonization projects. And we will host about 3 field trips to inspiring decarbonization buildings. So now we'll open up the floor for your questions. We'd prefer if people could raise their hand instead of using the chat, and we'll call on you. Remember to unmute yourself, please, and feel free to put your questions in the chat towards the end if you feel they haven't been answered. We will circle back to you by email to answer your questions if we run out of time. Or you are always welcome to email us at decarb@climateactionhb.org. And with that, we'd love to hear from you. Does anyone have a question? Stop sharing.
Bjorn, how about you go ahead?
Hi, Paige and Vanessa. Thank you very much for doing this. I'm executive director of one organization that does not have not-for-profit status and on the board of another organization that does. Both are in qualifying counties. And the board has decided to let the 501c3 entity act as a fiscal agent or sponsor for the smaller org across the river that doesn't have that status. Would those 2 applications be considered by the state as competing and therefore undermining of one another?
So it's 2 applications you're saying?
Right. So earlier, somebody, I believe, it said that let's say organization A submits an application, right? And then just one for themselves, but they also are acting as a fiscal agent for organization B. Is organization A hurt at all by its fiscal sponsorship of organization B?
I mean, I don't know of any technical issue with that on our end.
It's not going to look like 2 applications from the same org, even though there's the agency.
What do you think we could?
I think we can make that clear to the selection committee, that these are 2 different projects from 2 different entities, even if there's the fiscal sponsorship relationship. I think that's okay, Bjorn. And I will just say, because you said, does it matter to the state? Our program is not related to the state. We are a nonprofit ourselves. So the state doesn't have anything to do with it.
Got you. Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. How about Vic?
Hey, so I've got a few questions, so I'll kind of try to cycle through them. I'm representing another organization who's going to be applying. So I believe you expressed this, Vanessa, around like, can an organization apply for more than one category of the grant at a time? Where it's like they need some design work, but they also need like implementation stuff, and it's kind of all together for the bigger impact. I just wanted to get that locked in, that is okay to do.
Yeah, I would imagine if you are applying for design and engineering work, that it's a large project where you don't really quite yet know the exact scope of the project. You're not maybe quite sure what your interventions will be, and you're probably not sure what the budget is going to be. So it would, in my mind, you probably wouldn't be applying in a separate application at the same time for an implementation that would build off of that, because you don't even yet know like what exactly you'll be doing or what exactly the budget would be. But if you have like a separate project that you know already have those details on, then you can apply for a stage C implementation.
So just hear me out in my world of possibilities, where it's like, let's say we have the numbers, but we want to pay for the work that produced those numbers, right? Because they might have been generated in another effort through another grant, right? Could it be? Yeah. You know,
I think we're looking to fund projects and work that hasn't yet been done.
Okay.
So if you've already done the engineering and design work and you're looking for us to kind of reimburse you for that, I don't think that qualifies. But if you're done with that work and you know what it's going to take to do implementation, then apply for the stage C.
I'm gonna jump out of line.
Okay, thanks. How about Monica?
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I don't have my camera on. I'm not in a place where you want to see the visual, but I have a question. Early on, you mentioned there's no match, and then I heard the very telling phrase, "We need to see skin in the game." I understand in kind, I understand all of that, but if I'm talking about an implementation grant for the 100,000, can you clarify that a little bit? Because as someone with experience with grants that usually always want some kind of match, I just want to be sure I understand.
Yeah, thank you. I understand how that might be confusing. We don't require match, but if you have even a little bit of your own budget to put towards it, that's we would like to see that, but it's not required. So, or even if you are really strapped for cash with your organization and you just don't have anything to put in, that's okay. And you can explain that, and you can, if there are other ways to show that your organization, your board is really behind this, with volunteer time or anything like that, that's also great.
Well, I think we're gonna have some really nice in-kind donations.
That's great.
That have helped us get to the implementation point. So I'm hoping that all makes a difference to the panel of decision makers. I have one last question. Is you said you're only giving probably 2 implementation grants?
Just 2 that are at the $100,000 mark, 1 or 2.
Okay, so if we come in under 100,000, is there more money for that, or is that the total amount for the implementation grants? Do you understand what I'm saying? If the implementation isn't 100,000, let's say it's 75,000, are my odds better?
Probably yes.
Yeah.
Probably yes, because then we would be able to give $25,000 to other things. We want to help a lot of applicants. So, if we get 30 applications that are all asking for $100,000, we're going to be having to make some really tough decisions. Whereas if we get a variety of other smaller amounts, we can more easily divvy it up.
And
okay.
Also, Monica, one other thing that would help is if you're going for the 100,000, you can detail, in order of importance to you, what you would like funded. If you break that out a bit for us, then we could give you, the lesser amounts for certain parts of your project. We may not fund all the projects completely, but we may fund some of them partially.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you, both of you. A great webinar so far.
Great.
Thanks.
Janelle.
Yeah, Janelle.
Sounds like the applicants should all fraternize to come up with some nice round figures for you, huh?
That'd be great.
My questions or comments, one was in parallel to Vic's. We kind of vacillate on implementation versus design application, stage B or stage C. It's part of an omnibus package where we're trying to renovate our highway garage. So we've got biomass boiler upgrades. Like I said at a previous meeting, we were really trying to develop enough PV to offset our government consumption, local government consumption at that site as well. So I guess I was more looking for advice as to which one to apply to, because we have the engineering and they're doing a bulk approach, like I said. So the PV is just going to be one facet of a multifaceted project. I'm just trying to find the best way to dovetail that into a funding application, grant application, but I'm not going to take up everyone's time. Maybe I should talk to you guys offline and see what you think about what our best approach is. But when I started the application just to look into it, you said it's a live document, I'm coming in through a Google Suite account, and I did the preliminary pages. And when I went back, because I was reminded to change something, took me all the way back to starting page. So I might just need some technical advice. But like I said, I won't take up too much of everyone's time. But thank you both very much. It is a terrific webinar you're providing.
Good. Yeah, in terms of the Google Form application, I do worry that cookies get reset or something and you lose your work in that Google Form. So we really do suggest that you use the Word document version to sketch out your answers and then copy and paste once it's all worked out. Just because you never know with technology, and we don't want you to lose your work.
Terrific. Okay, thank you both.
Okay.
Denal, we're happy to have a call with you and talk through the scenarios.
All right, thank you.
How about Thomas? Tom.
Yeah, hello. I'm sitting in a lobby, so it might get very loud, but let's see if we can get through this. So I just have a question about the support letter. So I'm the climate smart community, but the applicant will be the municipality. Right. So they're already the applicant, but you're looking for a letter for them to support them being an applicant. So I'm not sure do you have a sample of the letter that we need?
The letter could be really, really simple. It could be from your village mayor, or it could be from the village board. I know you're in Philmont Village, Tom. Right. Just if it's just that you, Tom, are filling out this form, and we just want some paperwork assuring us that you are in cahoots with your powers that be. That's all it is. And it could be super simple. It could be a resolution or it could be a letter, just so that we know that the applicant, which is sometimes a volunteer such as yourself, has gone through the proper, ran it up to the flagpole with the powers that be. That's all.
Okay, they said they would do a resolution, but I don't think it's going to be done in time. So I just wanted to be sure what this letter.
The letter could be from your mayor or your town supervisor.
And also I was playing around with the form and did not succeed very well. So my fear is, does the form actually tell you that it's completed and it's been submitted? Is there some window that tells you that once you're all done?
Once you hit submit, it should, the page that you land on should say, thank you. We customize a little message that says, thank you for applying. And we also, Paige and I were just discussing that once that deadline has passed, we will send everybody who has applied, a BCC email to say, okay, we got your application. So again, best not to leave it to the last minute. Right. I know Paige and I will be, eagerly looking for stuff, but yeah.
So if I get a thank you, that means it got it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. This was very helpful.
Okay, good.
Like we were recommending, Tom, you might want to do it on a Word doc and transfer your questions just to make sure you don't lose it.
Fine. Okay. Thanks.
How about Julie?
Thank you. It's nice to be here with you all. I had a question about using this funding stage 3 as match. So you mentioned that using stage A would be good to match with the NYSERDA's Flex Tech, for that. But if I already have NYSERDA funding for implementation for a project, and I already know what the scope of the project is and the cost, and I don't have enough money for what I need to do, can I use stage C to match my NYSERDA grant?
That is golden. Wow, chef's kiss.
Great. Perfect. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Good. Okay. How about back to Vic?
Yep. Hey. So I'm gonna ask some of the yes or no ones on this list. Is it a reimbursement program?
No. you get the money up front.
Solid. And then can structural work that relates to energy efficiency improvements be included in implementation?
Structural work.
So
What
let's
kind of
say, for instance,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just make up an example. A roof needs to get done in order for this other insulation product to get put in
Mm-hmm.
to make it all work together, right? So the building may not be exactly ready for surgery, may need some like pre-work before then. Can that be included in the as part of the
Right.
application?
Yeah. I think we're open to that, right, Paige? Are we in this?
Yeah, exactly. We definitely
We got
doors and
old buildings.
windows. Yeah, no, the old buildings, doors,
Yeah.
windows, remediation, we're willing to consider. We haven't talked about a full roof, I guess.
That's just an example. I don't know what it
Yeah.
actually is. It is. It could be anything. I'm not sure right now, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we understand
and
that those are tricky things that people are finding to be stumbling blocks, right? You need to be
Mhm.
able to get stuff done. There's often this pre-work, and so I think we're open to that.
yeah, it's almost like you don't want to paint your car before you do the body work for it, right? Like
Right.
you want to, yeah.
Mhm.
So, and the last question would be when we talk about any design work, engineering work that's assessed and determined what the cost of things would be. Do there need to be any quotes for any proposed work around that, or even quotes for implementing contractors if you got framers coming out or you got, air sealing? And if so, how many?
Right. We don't require a specific number of quotes, but if you have those details, and if say you have even more, say you have 3 quotes, and maybe you haven't selected one yet, but you can talk about that in your application. The more kind of homework and prep that you're doing to show us that you're ready to move, the better. If you can apply and just say, oh, we estimate this project will be about this much, but you'd be a much stronger applicant if you can say, we had a contractor come in and they told us, here's the quote we got.
Because the rub with giving us an estimate is you do have to give us some number that we will, if you get the grant, we'll give it to you. But if you fall short, like if it's higher, you'll have to cover that. If it's lower, you'll have to return the balance to us. So just best to know ahead of time if possible.
Solid. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, it's great.
About David. Ace.
Hi, everybody, and thank you again for doing this, Vanessa and Paige. I had a question about the in-kind.
Yes.
And if you can just expand on that a bit. Let's say, for example, I've already spent 20 volunteer hours working on this. Would that be something that's included? And can you let me know what additional in-kinds we could provide for you?
Yeah, I think that's a great example, Stacy. That's something that you would want to talk up in your application. Another example is, say you're a church that's applying and you have someone in the congregation who is, owns a company that could do the insulation, could actually do the work. Maybe they're going to charge you for the materials or something. That would be fabulous. We're looking for folks who are able to, leverage any relationships that they have and get people involved. I think that's what we'd like to see. Paige, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think just let us know as much as possible, as Vanessa's saying, what you've done collaboratively with others. Does that answer your question, Stacy? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if in-kind would include people already on staff who this is not their normal, what they do normally in their job, and they're taking, this on as an extra task. Is
Sure.
that in-kind, or it's an assumed part of their job?
I think if it's extra hours, that would be considered
Yeah.
in kind. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Going back to David.
Yeah, thanks. I came in and out for a minute there when you were talking about the stages. How to put my question? Did I understand that the grant request should be just for one of the three stages, or can you combine work that would fall into the three, the study, engineering, and implementation? Can you combine those in a request? I got lost there.
It would be, each application would be for one stage. But say you have, say you have a stage C, you're working on your building, and you think you want to do, replace your windows and add insulation. That could be one application. So it's like kind of bundling multiple projects. It's one building. It's all about your, tightening your envelope and more efficiency. That could be one application for stage C. But if you have more than one stage, like if you want to do an energy study on one building, and then you want to do heat pumps in a different building, those would be separate applications. And if you have one building where you're like, oh, we want to do an energy study, and then we think we'll do some engineering, and then we'll want to implement, that's biting off more than I think any of us can chew. You would have to start from the beginning. In that situation, you would just start with the stage A energy study and get that done. And then, hopefully we'll offer this opportunity again in the future, and you could come back for stage B.
Okay. Yeah, because I did hear you say that it was kind of one application per customer, I guess, right?
If you have more than one building, you could be you could be doing two applications. But again, we just want to share with everyone, our goal is to help as many folks as possible. So you would be less likely to get, both of those applications funded by us. So we really encourage folks really pick the thing you really want.
I mean, it kind of seems like then give me phase C, we'll go for the jackpot, but
if you're going for stage C and you haven't, and you should have done an energy study, you should have done engineering, might not be a strong application. Okay. Might not be as strong as others who are coming with, we did a greenhouse gas emissions inventory. This was the #1 building. We did an energy study, and this was the #1 project. Those will be strong applications.
Okay. Thank you.
Stacy, do you have another question, or your hand's still up?
I'm sorry, I forgot to put my hand down.
Okay, no worries. How about Bjorn? Do you have another question?
Yes, I do. Thanks. I had one that was also answered earlier regarding private contractors versus state entities to come in and do assessments. It sounds like you're accepting private contracting assessments and proposals, estimates, etc.
Yeah. If you know that your building needs more insulation, and you want to just go and get a couple quotes from some contractors, that's great. Yeah. Okay. Is that what your question is?
That was the one that I thought got answered, and it did. And so the remaining question is, do you anticipate another round of granting next year, so that if we want to prioritize certain aspects of our current project in order to increase the likelihood of winning the grant, we can sort of table, if we want to do solar, insulation, and heat pumps, we'll table insulation and solar and just do heat pumps, or pick one of the aspects of that total decarb strategy in order to make it more likely to be awarded this year. And will there be another round next year, do you anticipate?
I don't think you can count on us having another round. Paige and I would love to, but I think that's a larger question for Partners for Climate Action, and whether we can raise more money for this.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we can count on it, sorry to say. And then to your question about how to prioritize which project, if you know your building needs a few different things. You know, Paige, you could chime in here too, but I feel like it's best to tighten up your envelope first before you go putting in heat pumps, because that's the more efficient thing to do. And Tara Donadio, you're here as well. Maybe you could chime in there in terms of the strategy of how to prioritize projects.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, Vanessa. I mean, if you're thinking about strategy and not applying for all of them, definitely the energy efficiency component is huge. And then, you know, that way you're sizing the heat pumps properly for,
Right.
you know, your building, and then solar being the final step when you know your full electrical load. So there's definitely a few kind of tiers of kind of figuring out where you want to go if you can't do it all. Even though we know energy efficiency isn't the funnest project to do, it's definitely a really critical piece of it, and sometimes really hard to find funding for elsewhere. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would just pipe in, like, make sure that you get those questions answered about energy efficiency, because we've heard that in some cases, installers, let's say of heat pumps, they might not go directly there because it might benefit them. I'm not saying everyone's like this, but to sell you the bigger heat pump while your energy leaks out of your roof. So make sure that you, if they're not bringing that up, make sure you ask someone who can tell you that.
Those were all great answers to questions I didn't ask, but I wish I had. So thank you. And you answered the question that I did ask. So my general contractor happens to be the head of an organization called Energy Conservation Services. So he specializes in exactly what we're talking about, and then he would subcontract out to the heat pump people. So we would start with the envelope. But great answers. Thank you.
Great.
David Case, did you have another question, or is your hand still raised? Okay.
Chat question, do you see, Melissa?
Yeah, Julie asked if we're talking about the total available funding, and no, we're being shy about it because we're still fundraising.
And does the program address solar PV and solar thermal installations? Yes, you can apply for stage C to cover solar.
Yes. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, we can just say thank you so much, not just for being here today, but for undertaking these projects. Like, the climate crisis is coming hot and heavy. So thank you all for your work and your time and dedication to these projects. And we hope that we can support you. So thank you for applying.